Welcome back to She Can, where women lead by example by telling their stories of how they got to where they are today to support and guide others, because it's easier to be what you can see. And I'm very excited to talk to Maria Grachvogel today. Maria, welcome to She Can. You're the founder of your own luxury women's wear brand with the same name. You have a shop in London and you're an architect of the female form, celebrating the woman. You have effortless and timeless and empowering pieces that sculpt and enhance the women's bodies. You really advocate for slow fashion pieces that last, to buy less and buy better. So I'm very excited to hear more about your journey today and how you got to where you are today.
Fabulous. That was a wonderful introduction. Thank you.
Maria, tell us a little bit more about your journey. So, you've been doing this for a very long time, because I know, because I have been buying your pieces for a very long time, and I have clothes or dresses in my wardrobe that must be at least 20 years old. So, tell us a bit more about your journey.
Gosh, well, it's lovely to hear that. I think, really my journey started probably around 8 years old when I said, when I grow up, I want to be a fashion designer. And then my mum started saying, well, you need to learn how to cut and to sew. And so around 12, 13, I started teaching myself a little bit. I mean, we were learning a bit at school, but I became fascinated with how the cut of something can
Wow.
make you taller, slimmer, change actually how you feel about yourself. So it was very much about that kind of process of clothing being there as almost your armor, as your kind of outlook to the world of how you want to present yourself. And so I started from that place. And it was always very much about the idea of having my own brand at some point.
Yeah.
Um, that journey was a little bit zigzaggy. So I tried to take a stand at London Fashion Week when I was 15. Um, and they quizzed me on all kinds of business things, of course, at the time. And uh, they said, you're very talented as a designer, but you need to learn some business skills. So I did a little bit of kind of evening business classes. I ended up in the city for a bit. That was helpful financially, but also in lots of kind of, I guess, people skills, learning how to write letters, business skills. And then finally set up my own business, initially with a partner,
Yeah.
and then on my own, gosh, over 30 years ago now. So a very, 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 very long time ago. And it's always been a bit of an organic process, I guess. It's grown in its own unique way. But I think what we've always had, and it probably comes from that kind of philosophy of wanting to empower women through everything that I do, is we've had such loyalty from our clients over the years. Is generally once people have something of mine, it becomes a treasure. And it becomes something that they love, that they go back to time and time again in their wardrobe. And I guess that sort of led me, to another part of my journey, sort of 10 years ago, where I said, well, actually, instead of it being following the normal path of fashion where we were doing shows and in all the stores everywhere, I'm going to take a bit more of a kind of a different approach. So we started really looking at changing it to a slow fashion approach, really kind of, I suppose, owning that space of we are clothes that are all about the woman. So that's a very short kind of
Yeah.
journey, if you like.
Yeah, perfect, Maria. Tell us a little bit more about your creative process and how has it changed over the last 3 decades?
Well, I think I would say it has evolved rather than changed.
Hmm.
So I think as we age, I've been thinking about this a lot actually, because we forget about the power of wisdom. When we're young, we have enthusiasm, we have energy, we have passion, we have all of these things that are fabulous. But as we age, we gain wisdom and we gain a kind of wholeness that I think certainly because my path has been sort of, let's say consistent. I've always I see it as a kind of growing and an evolving thing. So I bring different parts of my wisdom into my creative process. So, for example, one of the things I wanted to do many years ago was to create a pair of trousers that was really fit, because I found it personally really quite difficult to buy a pair of trousers. It was either, if it fit me on the waist, then it would be too tight on the hips. If it fit me on the hips, it would be too loose on the waist. And it didn't matter which way round it was just unflattering one way or another. I'd look at myself in the mirror and I wouldn't feel good. So everything about my creative process is about being able to put on a garment and not think about it. I want that garment to work for me, to make me feel good. And so I evolved that cut of my trousers over years and years, and we were always quite known for well cut trousers. But in 2006, I developed a pair that were cut without side seams, has a sort of seam at the back that gives you a kind of a lift and a sculpt. And if you have no shape, it gives you some shape. If you have shape, it kind of lengthens and minimizes. And they became an instant bestseller. And that's the ones that are now called magic trousers, named by our clients. But I think that illustrates, in a way, the process that I go through to finalize a product. This isn't really about fashion in the traditional sense. Those trousers were created in my collection since 2006. They're still a really important part of my collection. And I've evolved different cuts since then. The Oxford trousers, which has a baggier leg, because that was my next challenge. Now I've got a perfect, more fitted, sculpted pair. Now I want a pair that's comfy and relaxed and that I can wear every day, that's still really flattering. How can I achieve that? And I work on that bit by bit by bit, evolving that cut, evolving that fit till I get it right. And once it's right, it becomes almost like we create icons as we move through. And sometimes the hardest part about that is we have so many great products, and I still want to create new things because I have ideas of things I want to create. So the collection is, it's constantly evolving in that, in a way, it's a state of flow, but it's all about creating really beautiful pieces that just slot into your life and just work and make you feel amazing.
Yeah. When you were talking about the magical pants, I thought this is how we call them, the magical pants. And actually, I bought them a very long time ago. And now my 18-year-old daughter has annexed it. And before I knew it, it wasn't coming back to me.
Oh
And
my
she
goodness.
also calls it the magical pants because you look good at them no matter what. In a week where you feel, oh my gosh, I might have gained a few kilos and actually I'm not feeling so confident. These pants always look incredible. Maria, what do you feel are your main lessons after a very long time in this business with your own label, evolving over time, making really iconic pieces such as those pants, but also your dresses that sculpt beautifully on any woman and with any shape? You have beautiful prints as well. And I have a few of those dresses. What do you feel are your main lessons or your main learnings?
My main learnings. I think probably the biggest one is to stay true to who you are. I think, when I was younger, there's a sort of, when you're younger, there's a need to sort of, I don't know, maybe fit in is the right word. But I think as I became older and as I gained more kind of wisdom, I also gained more confidence, more self-confidence, and more belief in, well, I know what I'm doing is really different to anything else that's out there in terms of fashion. But that's okay. It's okay to have a different way of working. And I think once you inhabit that fully, you almost attract your tribe in a way. You're not trying to be anything or sort of, it's really sticking with your authenticity. So, I mean, as you said, every single thing that I do is founded on cut and fit and, I really value that. I think it's a little bit of a lost art and a lost skill because in fashion, you know, the emphasis has been very much on the look or creating something that becomes something that people can recognize externally. But actually, dressing for yourself, dressing for your own empowerment, your own self confidence, clothing that just makes you feel good, you don't need to worry about any of that. You can just be who you are.
Yeah. Maria, what would you, do you want that to be your legacy? What do you want it to be your legacy?
I think very much that. I think we've entered a time, it's quite interesting because fashion is entering this time of talking about sustainability a great
Mm,
deal. Um, but actually, as I was thinking about the fashion industry and how, I mean, everybody knows now that it's one of the most polluting industries.
yeah.
But so much of that is contained within that thought of, well, we're making a new collection and then we're promoting a new collection and then you must buy another and another and another. So it's this sort of consumption piece. But actually, if you just think about it, if it became cool to be who you are and dress who you are, I mean, you said you have pieces in your wardrobe from 20 years ago, which,
Gosh, yeah.
and me too. I don't have, although I create all these beautiful pieces, my wardrobe I don't choose everything from my collection for myself because
Mm,
I choose the pieces that resonate with me that I know I'm going to wear over and over and over on repeat, that
yeah.
I'm going to, wear for years and they become an important part of your wardrobe. The
Yeah.
clothes that you sort of, when you're looking for something to wear for something, whatever it might be, whether it's every day or whether it's an event, you know how you want to feel on that day. You go into your wardrobe and you say, I want to feel cocooned today. I don't feel very good about myself today, or I'm feeling in need of just a bit of comfort. You will choose something very, very, very different to the day where you go, you know what, I need to rock this interview. I need to be empowered. And I think we all go back to certain pieces time and time again in our wardrobe. And I think there's a message there for sustainability, for fashion, for women in general, to say, why not choose for us? Let's understand the pieces that resonate with us. Let's understand the pieces that bring us joy when we wear them and make us feel good about ourselves. And if we only buy in that way, in that space, I think that is the most sustainable way
Yeah.
of
I,
seeing.
Yeah, I love that you said that, Maria. And I have a golden evening dress from you that I've been wearing. I think it's definitely more than 20 years. And I'm sure it'll go to my daughter at one point, but I'm still wearing it. And
That's
it still
wonderful.
fits me. So it has grown with me. And some tops as well who have that same sort of style that just drapes over you beautifully and then gets tighter. It's just beautiful.
Oh,
I started wearing it before I was a mom, and 3 kids later that are now almost grown-ups, I'm still wearing it. It's pretty special. I don't really have that with other dresses. And I think that's what makes your pieces so powerful, because that's exactly what it's a style that fits me. It makes me feel really good about myself. And I always think this is the tips we have to give younger generations. What do you feel really good in? This is what you're going to do, and get rid of everything else and stop buying anything else, because it just, if you want to feel your best every day, just put on what really does that for you. Maria, so what tips would you give to all the next generations coming up? They're young women, they're in jobs, they want to feel good about themselves. What tips would you have for them?
I think the first the first thing is, in a way, you kind of need to do a bit of a wardrobe audit. And I love what you said about those pieces that you go back to time and time again. And I think we all have that. So
Yeah.
you go through your wardrobe, recognizing that fashion is there in a way to express parts of who you are.
Mm.
And I think in the past we used to think of a work wardrobe and a wardrobe for other things. But actually, now it's just a wardrobe. Our lives are very interconnected. And so it's about going through your wardrobe, trying every piece on, working out how does this make me feel? And is it a piece that I keep going back to? And it's almost like you put all of those pieces to one side, all of the other pieces on the other side. And if you're going to buy something, it must fit within that space because every single piece that you're investing in should be a reflection of you in some way, should add something to that wardrobe that over time is going to bring you joy.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite interesting that, you spoke a little bit about having pieces for 20 years and it, you know, so many children later and they're still fitting you. And I think there's a value there in cut and fit
Yeah.
that's actually often a little unspoken and it's hard to spot. But you know it when you try it on because it brings something out in you. And if something is well cut, it actually has a degree of movement about it. It doesn't mean you can maybe increase 10 dress sizes, but if you go up or down a dress size, there's a degree of accommodation
Yeah.
within something that's really well cut that will still feel comfortable and still make you feel good. And I really believe in that. So it's not just about the way something looks, but it's also you must put it on, you must inhabit it and see how you feel in it when you sit down. Do things annoy you about the clothes? Because all of that, when you feel good in something, you will project your confidence and be your best self.
I agree. Marie, so what are your challenges? What do you have challenges? What are your challenges? How do you reframe them?
I think the fashion business is a tough business, and I've had many challenges over the years. But I'm still here. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. I think that power of wisdom again. So, in the years gone by, of course, when challenges hit you, you can sometimes feel like it's the end of the world, or, you know, I guess, you can see things very negatively for a period of time. But I think what I've learned, and perhaps it's just over time, is that every single challenge comes with an opportunity. And every single thing that you face is there to teach you something about you, about who you are. And all you need to do is step back. And I think the power of having had so many different things over the years go wrong is that you realize actually it all kind of works out in the end.
Mm.
So, and often things that you think are a complete disaster end up working much for the better in the long run.
Yeah.
Um, and you become happier, or there's some other positive experience that comes out of it. But every single challenge has come with a great learning and a great growth. I always sort of think you've got this almost like that's who you are. And when there's a challenge, you push to the edge of that and it's uncomfortable. It feels really uncomfortable at the time. But the minute that you push through that, you actually expand yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's a constant expansion of who you are. And I suppose I like to think of it like that.
Yeah. For people to really be comfortable with being uncomfortable and outside of your comfort zone, because that's where growth happens.
Absolutely.
Maria, so what are you most proud of to date?
Hmm. I think probably I'm most proud of actually having achieved, I think, a lot of what I set out to achieve with that empowerment of women. And
Mm.
I think I realized that over the last 10 years, and it brings me such joy every time, including you today, share with me that you have pieces that you're still wearing from 20 years, that you have magic trousers that now your daughter is wearing. Those little anecdotes, those little things that people share with me over time, day to day, from different clients or different places make me realize that I'm doing what I set out to do, and that I am empowering women through my cuts and my fit and through the work that I do. And so I think that still brings me the kind of greatest joy.
Beautiful. Maria, so what kind of a leader are you? How do you lead by example?
I I think I'm actually I quite like to gently guide rather than push people to necessarily change. I would say over the years, I've kind of got to realize that every single person has things that they're naturally good at, and they have things that are pushing against that comfort zone.
Mm.
And sometimes you don't necessarily know that as a leader, and you might say something to somebody, and you can see their reaction means it's pushing against their comfort zone. So you have to be, in a way, observant, flexible, and shift your, I suppose, management style to be able to recognize, oh, actually, I thought you'd be comfortable with that, but actually you're not, without necessarily saying that to the person. So you have to have a lot of empathy, I guess. And I like to push people. I like to challenge people because that's how they expand and grow. But if you push people too hard and too fast, it can be very stressful. And if you don't push people enough, they can get bored. So it's about finding that balance through, I guess, connection, empathy, observation, and just trying to give enough of a push to make sure that people are constantly challenged and constantly growing, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Maria, so what are your plans and goals for 2025 and beyond? What is your vision going forwards?
I really want to take this idea of, let's say, an education piece to a broader audience of, I guess, the more sustainable way of thinking about your wardrobe and that kind of idea of dressing for your joy,
Mm.
dressing for your soul, not necessarily thinking about whether something's the cool thing or not, but if it's cool to you, if you feel good in it, then you should embrace that. And I quite like to be able to bring that education to a broader place. I mean, I do it through my work, through my customers, but I feel like that there's a message there that is really relevant now, and particularly now,
Yeah,
to a much broader audience. So
yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to do that right now.
Yeah, I think I can see what you mean, and I can see there's a really important place because a lot of that education we don't have. So young people or young women then go back to all the big sort of fast fashion stores because the education really isn't there. I mean, we overall know that buying too much is not a good idea, but we don't really learn how to sculpt a really good wardrobe, and that the feeling that we have from pieces is what should lead us, etc. I can see that, people always think, oh, if I buy another pair of jeans, it'll be the perfect one. And they've been looking for 50 years for the perfect jeans, and I just think these are these traps that we fall into, which is really not conducive to being a better consumer, being more intentional, and actually understanding what looks good and what doesn't look good. What do we feel really good in? And so I think there is a real education piece missing, and I don't think we get it, and I don't think young people get it.
I think
Maria.
it's hard though, because, you know, the younger generation have been brought up with the idea of constant newness
Yeah.
and seeing all this visual stimulation the whole time,
Mm,
and everything being about the way something looks
yeah.
rather than the deeper part of that. So I think that the education has to happen on so many different levels I'd say our generation has an appreciation of cut and fitting quality still, but it is a bit of a lost art within the industry because the focus has been on a much cheaper price, making things more accessible and turning things out more quickly for greater profit.
Yeah.
With it comes a huge price, but also it's a little bit like empty calories. You know, when you eat sugar and you consume it, but you want more and more and more because it's very addictive, because it's just empty and it's not giving you anything that you need.
Yeah.
It's very much the same thing with
Yeah.
cheap clothes. You put it on, you don't really feel good, but you've just bought something, you feel good for a moment.
Yeah.
But actually, the understanding that if you put on something that's cut really beautifully and made really beautifully, that actually you might keep for 10, 15, 20 years and still be wearing.
Yeah.
And you're going to feel incredible every single time you put it on. I don't even think it's part of consciousness for a younger generation. I don't think that they've ever experienced it, so they wouldn't know what that is because it's not been valued at all, that process. I mean, if you talk about it logically, cost per wear, certainly I know that, I've been told so many times that yes, my pieces are expensive, but as a cost per wear, they've always been worth the investment.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, your pieces they've amortized over 25 years, I mean, it's ridiculous what it cost per wear. Absolutely. And thank you for saying all that, because I think it's very important. And I think it's this quick dopamine hit that this generation, the younger generations, they get that, but because times are changing and we have to change the way we shop, we have to highlight that, and we have to go back to that, because that's essentially where we need to go as a global society with a conscience.
Completely, completely. But more than that, it is actually going to give you so much more because, less but better pieces that make you feel incredible.
Yeah.
You can style things in different way, make them your own for different moments of your life, different, you know, it should really, I just really believe that clothes should be all about you. And we need to return to that kind of integrity. And actually, I have had a lot of success with the younger generation in terms of that education piece when it's been one-on-one, whether they be students that have worked with me, etc., etc. So I believe that it will resonate. It just needs to get out there to a bigger audience.
So there's a big puzzle piece that you need to find, Maria, of how you're going to do that.
Indeed.
What would you like our listeners to take away from your story?
Well, probably that. Probably the idea of, let's look at your wardrobe in a new way. Can we, you know, can you look into your wardrobe, be honest about who you are and what you wear, and go back through your wardrobe and pick out those pieces that make you feel amazing? I think if everybody that listens manages to do some of that and brings a new consciousness to their daily dressing and a new joy into their life through their clothes, I think that would be a wonderful achievement.
Maria, what a beautiful note to end on. Thank you so much for telling your story. Thank you for everything you do, for what matters to you and how you want to matter in the world.
Thank you.